Welcome back to Discover the Wonders. Today we are talking about water. So, the wonder of water in the desert in our Bible story. We're going to talk about a lady who is quite famous, but whose life was changed when she was in the water, and just the amazing things God has done in her life through her accident in water. And then I have a few other stories and songs that in some way relate to water. So we start off with the story in the Bible. So last week we talked about food in the desert and how God provided for all those Israelites in the desert when they had no food. How he brought them quails so they could have meat, but also how he provided manna for them. So when they would wake up in the morning, there would be food just lying all over the ground. So God is providing for them in an amazing way. So you need food, but even more importantly in the desert, you need water. So the people here are running out of water, and that's all anyone can think about. So they've been traveling on, and so they're looking for water, and then they see it. They see a quiet little pool of water, and so they're so excited they go running up and, drink a mouthful of water, but then they spit it out, and they're absolutely disgusted because it tastes awful. And so they go to Moses, as they usually do when they got a problem. Instead of praying to God, they go to Moses and say, Moses, you've got to do something. This water is terrible. You know what's worse than no water in the desert is water that you can't drink. So Moses doesn't know what to do with this water that tastes horrible. So he asks God what to do. That's what we should always do when we don't know what to do. Ask God, because God always knows what to do and he can always help us. So God showed him a piece of wood lying nearby. And so Moses picked up that bit of wood and he threw it in the water. And when he did that, the bitter taste went out of the water and the people could drink, and it just tasted normal. So when Moses did what God told him to do, God fixed the water and then it was fine. Not long after, the Israelites came to an oasis, a beautiful oasis which had lots of palm trees and lots of clear springs of water. So that was a really nice place for them to stay. They could get all the fresh water they wanted. But the time came. Remember, they're following the cloud. The cloud was like what they could see, like God's guidance. When the cloud would move, then they would need to pack up and move. So soon the cloud starts to move, and so the Israelites are going to pack up their tents and they've got to be on their way. Can they trust God to provide water as they keep moving? Now, when they come to their next camping place, there was no water at all. And so they go to Moses again and they say, give us water. Why did you bring us out here to die of thirst? Now they don't have much faith. God has brought them out of Egypt and God is going to keep on taking care of them. But it's hard to trust when you can't see any way that God's going to provide for you. So they're still learning to trust in God. But now they're getting angry, they're thirsty, and Moses is getting worried and a little bit scared because the people were so angry, some of them were even picking up stones to throw at him, as if that's going to help anything. So again, Moses goes to God and says, what do I do with these people? And God tells him what to do. He says, take your stick. Moses had his stick from when he was a shepherd. God said, take your stick and go with the leaders of the people to a rock that I will show you. And when you get there, you hit that rock with your stick. Now, what good is that going to do, to hit a rock with a stick? But Moses has learnt to trust God and to obey him. So he does just what God says to do. He gets his stick, he takes the elders, some of the leaders of the people, and he goes to a rock that God showed him, and he hit the rock with his stick. And when he did that, water came flowing out. God provided them water. You know, Moses wished that the Israelites would just learn to trust God, that God does take care of them and looks after them. But we need to trust him, because it's the same for us too, especially if we follow God and we love him. He promises to take care of us, but it's not always that easy to trust. So yeah, we need to learn to trust God, that he does keep his promises, and, you know, to go to him when we have problems, to go to God for help, because just like he always showed Moses what to do, he'll help us as well. So now we're going to talk about a lady. She lives in America, and she is one of my favorite authors. But when she was 17 years old, her life very suddenly changed for the worse. So she was at the beach with some family, and she dove into the water, as she'd probably done 100 times before. But when she dove in, she had an accident. She hit a rock, and she straight away became paralyzed. And, you know, if you're in the water and you suddenly get paralyzed like that, that's very dangerous, because you can't get yourself out of the water. And so she kind of sunk down and was, you know, like kind of couldn't get up out of the water. And so she nearly drowned. But thankfully, her sister noticed that she hadn't come back up out of the water. And so her sister found her and pulled her up to see, like, you know, if she was all right. And then they had to call the ambulance, and she had to go to hospital. And she was in hospital a very long time. And that was very, very devastating for her. You know, imagine you're a teenager and suddenly one day your life is changed. So she became a quadriplegic, however you say it. She was paralyzed, like from her neck down, although I think she can move like her arms a little bit. So yeah, that was devastating for her and for her friends and her parents and her family. And she became very depressed. Now, she was from a Christian family and she believed in God as well, but this was a really hard thing to go through. And, you know, she became depressed and even wanted to take her own life, but she couldn't even do that because she couldn't really do much at all. But at one point she prayed to God and she said, if I can't die, teach me how to live. And, you know, that's a very good prayer for any of us to pray. Teach me how to live, because God made us, and so he can teach us how to live the way that he wants us to. And if we have hard times, we can ask God to teach us how to live through those hard times. And, you know, when she was 17 and that happened, she was told by the doctors that she could expect to live for 10 years. Well, you know what? She's still alive today, and she is 76 years old. So she's still alive, and, you know, like, she lived through COVID. She got COVID and she's still fine. But God has done so many amazing things in her life. So she's an author. Now, she can't use her hands to, you know, like to type or to write, but she's still able to write and publish books. I tried to figure out how many she had written, but I didn't really get an exact number, but at least over 40. I've got a few of her books. I've got a devotional by her. I've even got some children's stories that she's written. And then I also have a story about her and her husband, because she even got married even though she's, you know, paralyzed. So she has a very loving and good husband who looks after her. So as well as being an author of a lot of books, she's also a singer. She has a beautiful voice and she sang lots of songs. And she even sung one song for a movie. And I'm going to sing that soon. But as well as being an author and a singer, she is also an artist. Now, how can a paralyzed person be an artist? Well, she learnt how, instead of using her hands, to use her mouth. So she draws and paints with the pencil or paintbrush in her mouth. So, and she can draw and paint better than a lot of people who have perfectly normal arms and hands. So she has a real gift, but, trusting in God through her, her accident and being paralyzed, trusting in God and, she was able to do so many different things. God used it all for good in her life. And she, as well as doing these things like being an artist, she's been used by God to help so many people all over the world. So she has a ministry for to help people who are disabled or people like her who are in a wheelchair. She's done a lot of things to help people all around the world. She also has a radio program, which she's done for 43 years. So I'm just going to sing this song, and it's called I'm Alone, Yet Not Alone. And this is one that she sung for a movie. And then after that, I'll read you a few quotes by her. I'm alone, yet not alone. God's the light that will guide me home. With his love and tenderness, leading through the wilderness. And wherever I may roam, I'm alone, yet not alone. I will not be bent in fear. He's the refuge I know is near. In his strength I find my own, by his faithful mercies shown. That so mighty is his shield, all his love is now revealed. He has bound me with his love, watchful angels look from above. Every evil can be braved, for I know I will be saved, never frightened on my own. I'm alone, yet not alone. But if you want to hear her sing that beautiful song, it is on YouTube. It's called I'm Alone, Yet Not Alone. And I don't think I even said her name, but her name is Joni Eareckson. And because she is married, then her name is also now Joni Eareckson Tarter. So you can see a lot of things by her on YouTube. And also there's even a movie about her life, and I think she's on there for part of it. She acted on there as well. But here are some things that she has said. She said, true wisdom is found in trusting God when you can't figure things out. When bad things happen, like what happened to her, you can't figure out why. But she says true wisdom is found in trusting God when you can't figure things out. And she said, faith isn't the ability to believe long and far into the misty future. It's simply taking God at his word and taking the next step. And this is something she said about hard times, about suffering. This is something she's learned. She said, suffering is the textbook that will teach you who you really are. Suffering is the textbook that will show you the stuff of which you are really made. It will sandblast you. It will strip you bare. It will strip you of all your sinful ways, leaving your soul raw and exposed, but also that you might be better bonded to the Saviour. When our hearts are beating in rhythm with his, you can't help but feel his pleasure, his favour and his approval. Heaven's joy comes cascading down, spilling up and splashing out of your heart, streaming out to others in rivers of encouragement and rising back up to God in ecstatic fountains of praise. And one more thing she said, because, she had such a hard life. And you know what? She didn't only get paralyzed. Later in her life, she started having problems with chronic pain. And then she got breast cancer as well. So she's had kind of no end of problems. But she said, a splashover of heaven is finding Jesus in your splashover of hell. So, when things are so hard, when you trust in God and you feel his love, that's like a splashover of heaven. So now I'm going to read a story that I wrote, but it's kind of based on something that happened with me and my daughter when I took her to the pills. So this story is kind of made up, but it's based on something that happened with my daughter Lydia. So this story is called At the Pools. Man, it's hot today, groaned Elise, lying on the couch next to the fan. Mum, can we go to the pools? Please, Mum, Guido begged. I'm boiling. Mum looked up from folding the washing. Really? I can't see any steam, but it is hot. We can go if you'll help me first. Guido, you can tidy up the lounge. Elise, you can help me put this washing away. Then we'll go. The lounge was tidied and the washing was put away in record timing. They grabbed their togs and towels and got into the hot car. Mum brought a blow-up ring that someone had given them for 1-year-old Hadassah. Then they headed to the pools. The older kids jumped into the medium-sized pool, while Mum took Hadassah to the shallow pool. But after a while, Mum let Hadassah go into the medium pool. Since it was too deep for Hadassah, Mum got in and held her. Hey, Elise, can you get that blow-up ring? Mum asked. I want to try putting Hadassah in it. It's over on the chair by our towels. Elise fetched it and gave it to Mum. Mum tried to put Hadassah in it, but Hadassah cried and clung tightly to her. She feels unsafe, said Mum. I'll try again later. But the next time she tried, Hadassah cried again and held on tight to Mum. Never mind, said Mum. On the way home, Elise and Mum were talking about the ring as Elise was sitting in the front seat. It was like she thought she would drown if she got into it, remarked Elise, as if you would let her. She felt unsafe in it, added Mum, but really she was just as safe in the ring as in my arms, because I was right there. But I'm just like Hadassah sometimes. New things or changes scare me. I forget that God is with me in every change. Because he is with me, I don't need to be afraid. Hey, do you remember Isaiah 41 verse 10? You memorized it at school. Elise thought for a moment and then said, Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. Mum finished it for her. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Oh yeah, said Elise. It's been a while since I memorized it. I remember it all because I made a tune for it, Mum said as she slowed down to enter the road. I'll have to teach it to you. It makes it so much easier to remember. And now here's the application to the story. How about you? Do you feel frightened sometimes? Does change or new things make you feel scared? You don't have to be afraid. God is right there and he will help you. When you feel scared, pray to him. Trust him to take care of you. And that's very true. God took care of the Israelites in the desert. And he took care of Joni Eareckson, Tada. Even though she had bad things happen, God helped her through it all. And I will show you how to sing that verse because I did make a tune for it. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. So I got the idea for that story from being at the pools with my daughter Lydia, and she did the same thing. Like when I tried to put her in a blow-up ring, she just clung to me and was really scared. Another thing I noticed that when I took her to the swimming pools, if she was in the little shallow pool, she was perfectly confident. She could walk around and, she wasn't scared. But when I took her in the deeper pool, so it wasn't too deep, like she could stand up, but she, it was probably like, I don't know, maybe up to her neck. She was so scared in there, she would like cling to me. She would stay very close to me. And so because the water was deep, she knew that she needed me. And so she stayed close to me. And I thought that's a little bit like, me and God. When I have hard times, when things are challenging, then I know how much I need God. And so then I stay close to him because I need him. Whereas if everything in my life is really easy, it's like being in a shallow pool. I think I can do everything myself. So this song is called In the Deep. But the first verse is based on a promise in the Bible. There is a promise that says, when you walk through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not overflow you. So God is promising when you go through hard things, like what Joni Eareckson went through, or any other type of hard things, God is with us. So we need to trust in him. And when we trust in him, he does help us. So I'm going to sing you this song called In the Deep. When you walk through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they'll not overflow. For I am with you, I will carry you. And then my love and strength you'll know. For it is in the deep that I hold tight to Jesus. It is in the deep that I depend on him. It is in the deep I experience his nearness. It is in the deep that I stay close to him. Sometimes I want to stay where it is shallow. I want to stay where I can feel I'm in control. I want to keep within my comfort zone. I don't want to go where the deep waters roll. But it is in the deep that I hold tight to Jesus. It is in the deep that I depend on him. It is in the deep I experience his nearness. It is in the deep that I stay close to him. Now, there is a true story from 1889. There was a really terrible flood in Pennsylvania. It was called the Johnstown flood. And so it was a really bad flood, and a lot of people lost their lives. But there were some people who were very brave and did amazing things in trying to rescue people from the flood. So there was a girl, her name was Alice, and she was 10 years old. She was inside their house, and she had her baby brother with her when the flood waters came, and it like kind of picked the house up off its foundations, and the house was swept downstream. So this little girl, Alice, is inside the house with her brother, and the house is being swept downstream. So that's terribly dangerous and terribly scary. But Alice trusted in God, and she knew that God would take care of her. So she got down on her knees and she prayed and asked God to save her and little Robert, her little brother, from the flood. Now, there was a group of people who were on high ground above the flooded river, and they saw this house go floating by. And, they were really horrified at what they were seeing. And as this house floated by, they heard her calling, "Help, help, please help me." Now, how are they going to help her? The river's overflowing. It's very dangerous, and there's a house that has been swept down the river. How are you going to help somebody inside? But a 17-year-old boy, his name was Charles, he decided he was going to try to save Alice. Now, the other people said, no, don't do that. You'll just drown in the waters. But he said, no, I'm going to do it. So he jumped into the wild river and he swam towards the house. When he got there, he was able to tie the baby onto his back, and he was able to swim back to higher ground. So those who were on shore, they were shouting words of encouragement to him. And as they pulled him up out of the water, he said, "Wait, there is still another child in the house. I must save her too." So once again, he risks his life. And this time he grabbed a wooden plank to support him. And he's got a bigger child to get a 10-year-old. So he grabs the wooden plank and he goes back again into the water. But this time it was even harder because the water was even higher and the current is even faster. So he was fighting his way towards the house. Alice could see him coming, and she prayed that God would help him. When he finally got to the house, he snatched her, and using that plank as support, they slowly made it back to higher ground. Both the teenager, and Alice and her little brother had been saved from death, and God did help them. So no matter what troubles we go through in life, we're alone, but we may be alone, but we're not alone because God is always with us. And no matter what happens, we don't need to be afraid when we're trusting in God. And he can help us just like he helped, that boy to rescue those 2 children. He can help us like he helped Joni Eareckson. He taught her how to live. So I'm just going to sing one more song. And because, water can also be life-saving. If you're thirsty, just like the Israelites in the desert, water can save your life. And, Jesus can save our life too. He can give us hope. He can give us help. So this song is called "Drinking at the Springs of Living Water." It means when we come to God for his help, he gives us living water. He's able to help us and satisfy our soul. I thirsted in the barren land of sin and shame, and nothing satisfying there I found. But to the blessed cross of Christ one day I came, where springs of living water did abound. Drinking at the springs of living water, happy now am I, my soul they satisfy. Drinking at the springs of living water, oh wonderful and bountiful supply. How sweet the living water from the hills of God, it makes me glad and happy all the way. Now glory, grace, and blessing might the path of trod. I'm shouting hallelujah every day. Drinking at the springs of living water, happy now am I, And there's one more verse that says, O sinner, won't you come today to Calvary? A fountain there is flowing deep and wide. The Saviour now invites you to the water free, where thirsting spirits can be satisfied. So I hope and pray that that may be true of you, that you may go to God and that he may satisfy your soul.